There are certain moments in music where time freezes, where the world doesn't just listen, it pays attention. For African hip-hop, that moment arrived the second Nasty C stepped up to the mic and delivered a freestyle so sharp, so polished, and so unapologetically confident that the global rap conversation suddenly shifted. It wasn't a viral stunt. It wasn't a publicity trick. It was a declaration. A young South African artist, standing in front of an international audience, delivering verse after verse with the precision of a surgeon and the charisma of someone who knew. This performance would change everything. In a single take, he fused African storytelling with global rap technicality. He flexed power without desperation. He punched without cursing. He boasted while still sounding grounded. And when it ended, the internet erupted. People weren't asking if Nasty C was one of the best from Africa. They were now asking why the world hadn't recognized him sooner. This is the story of that freestyle. The breaking point. The cultural shift. The moment African rap finally forced the world to listen. Before we go further, support me by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. It helps a lot. To understand why this performance hit so hard, you have to understand the landscape it entered. For years, African rappers fought for recognition on the global stage. The talent was there, jaw-dropping lyricism, innovative cadences, and stories the world had never heard. But international platforms rarely paid attention unless the artists already had Western cosigns. African music was respected, African hip-hop was tolerated, but African lyricism, that was often ignored entirely. So when Nasty C appeared on a major platform, expectations were sky-high. Many Africans hoped he'd show the world what the continent had been quietly building. Critics, meanwhile, expected the usual, decent bars, some clever lines, then a polite exit. What they got instead was a performance that shattered stereotypes and flipped the power dynamic completely. This wasn't an African rapper trying to break into global hip-hop. This was an elite MC stepping into the ring and proving he belonged there all along. Nasty C didn't stumble into this moment. He built toward it for over a decade. Raised in Durban, he grew up around a mix of local sounds and American hip-hop influences. But unlike many aspiring artists who imitate what they hear, Nasty C absorbed technique while preserving identity. By age 16, he had already mastered multisyllabic patterns. By 18, his storytelling was polished beyond his years. By 21, he was one of the most streamed African rappers ever. But raw talent wasn't enough. What truly shaped him was intent. He didn't want to sound like a South African rapper trying to be American. He didn't want to chase trends or mimic flows. He wanted to build a bridge, one where authenticity carried global weight. And that mindset is exactly what erupted during the freestyle. When Nasty C took his position in front of the mic, you could feel the tension. Not nervousness, anticipation. The host leaned forward. The cameraman steadied the lens. The room fell silent. This wasn't because people doubted him. It was because they didn't know what he would do. Would he play it safe? Would he stick to punchlines? Would he showcase flow over substance? But the moment he opened his mouth, all doubts vanished. He didn't start with a shallow flex. He didn't begin with a rhyme meant to warm up the crowd. He opened with a mission statement, a paraphrased declaration that went something like, "I sharpen every skill I have. If competition wants smoke, they can test themselves against it." The room shifted. Listeners straightened in their seats. The beat hadn't even fully settled, and already the tone had been set. This wasn't performance. This was dominance. The first major punch of the freestyle arrived early. Nasty C crafted a metaphor about being a scalpel, while challengers were blunt tools. In just a few words, he positioned himself as a technician, someone who doesn't just rap, but refines, carves, and performs lyrical surgery. Then he delivered a paraphrase bar along the lines of, "I elevate every year. My growth doesn't plateau like theirs." This wasn't random bragging. It was a commentary on work ethic, consistency, and self-awareness. African rappers rarely get credit for evolution, but Nasty C made it clear. He studies the craft like a scholar. Moments later, he flipped into a melodic portion, not singing, but gliding, showcasing versatility without breaking the mood. His cadence became unpredictable, jumping from clipped syllables to elongated vowels, forcing listeners to follow every line closely. Every sequence felt intentional. Every pause added tension. Every inflection heightened the message. He wasn't just rapping, he was demonstrating mastery. Midway through the freestyle, Nasty C shifted into his signature pocket. Controlled aggression wrapped in calm delivery. In one paraphrased line, he declared, "I move smart, avoid drama, and stay focused, because success makes you a target." This wasn't a bar, it was a worldview. It spoke to navigating fame, jealousy, and the complexity of rising from local stardom to global relevance. He positioned himself as someone who has seen both the love and the danger that comes with success. Then came the crowd-stopping moment. He compared his growth to an unstoppable force, suggesting that while others fade, he gets stronger under pressure. Not louder, not more chaotic, stronger. Listeners felt that line deep in their chest. It wasn't arrogance, it was earned confidence. At this point in the freestyle, you could feel the room leaning forward. Not because they were trying to catch every bar, but because they didn't want to miss a single second of what came next. One of the most overlooked elements of the freestyle is how effortlessly Nasty C merged worlds. He wasn't trying to sound American. He wasn't using references that disconnected him from home. He didn't dilute his style for global approval. Instead, he blended global technique with African sharpness. He used universal metaphors, but delivered them with South African cadence. He used modern flows, but structured them with African storytelling logic. He took the best of both worlds, but never abandoned where he came from. This is why the freestyle hit differently. It wasn't foreign. It wasn't local. It was global African hip-hop, the future of the genre. Within hours of the freestyle going live, reactions poured in from every corner. The biggest shock came from traditional lyricism fans, the type who analyze rhyme schemes and count syllables. They realized Nasty C wasn't just good for an African rapper. He was elite. This wasn't just a good performance. It was a cultural turning point. For the first time in a while, a freestyle from Africa entered global rap spaces without needing validation from American cosigns. People shared it because they were impressed, not because they felt obligated, not because it was African talent, but because it was elite talent. It forced global hip-hop to adjust its expectations. It forced industry insiders to rethink how they scout African artists. It forced fans to realize the Rap Olympics no longer belonged to one region. This freestyle wasn't just entertainment. It was representation. After the freestyle, Nasty C's name entered conversations that once excluded African artists entirely. Producers started reaching out. Podcasters began analyzing his technique. Reaction channels made breakdown videos. He didn't just earn respect. He earned fear, because rappers know what happens when someone this skilled enters the room. Competition gets uncomfortable, and hip-hop becomes better. Nasty C didn't ask for approval. He didn't chase validation. He delivered greatness, and the world had no choice but to recognize it. This freestyle wasn't the beginning. It wasn't the end. Thanks for watching to the end. Remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel. And as always, stay active.